The scalpel trembled in his hand. In the middle of the operation, Dr. Hale froze. His eyes locked on the necklace around the girl's neck. It was his mother's. Before I tell you what happened next, comment below. Where in the world are you watching from? Pressure's falling clamp. Adrian Vale didn't look up. He followed the torn mesentery like a map he'd drawn himself. Bite, tie, check the ooze, move on. 2 hours into a pediatric trauma laparotomy, and the room was down to voices and choices. The retractor shifted. He glanced to correct it and stopped. A silver teardrop pendant lay taped aside at the base of the girl's throat, chain looped so it wouldn't drag the sterile field. Hairline crack across the top, flattened links, tiny scratch by the clasp. His mother's. Dr. Rosa the scrub. Read the freeze in his shoulders. He heard her, but the hum in his ears got loud. And for a second the instrument in his hand wasn't a scalpel but a memory. He forced air out, put the blade where it belonged, and made the next move. Irrigate. Stay with me. Numbers came from anesthesia. He answered with decisions. The girl, Mara, no last name listed, had been hit by a truck. Ugly injuries, fixable injuries. He could fix ugly. But the pendant, no, it couldn't be. On her when Ems brought her, Rosa said, anticipating the question he hadn't asked. Want it off? And no, too fast. Keep it clear. He packed the liver. He stapled small arterial bleeders. He felt the room tighten, then ease as the field went from red to pink. The pendant didn't stop existing. It glinted with the familiar hairline crack he'd once kissed in a hospice room, and the chain he'd set under a collar before a coffin shut. He had buried that necklace. He had watched the dirt hit. End of story. Except here it was. Last stitch, he said. The monitor stuttered. VTAC. Charge to 120. Clear as shock. The girl's body jumped. The rhythm lurched, then found itself. Sinus tac, anesthesia called. They closed. The drapes came down. Adrian could have pretended he hadn't seen the pendant, but he wasn't built for pretending. Rosa dropped it into a specimen cup and labeled it with neat block letters. Mara, pendant 217. He washed until the heat bit. The mirror showed a man who never missed, suddenly unsure what to do with his hands. He headed to the Pichu because movement was easier than thought. Mara lay sedated, small and stubborn even asleep. The nurse said, "Headmistress from St. Bridget's is here. She won't sit." Then, the kid woke during transfer, reached for her neck. Adrian stepped to the bed. Habit made him touch the blanket near the girl's shoulder. Her eyelids fluttered open. Her eyes were amber brown, threaded with gold. His mother's eyes. "You made it through," he said, keeping his voice level. "I'm Dr. Vale." Her fingers tapped the rail. Too quick. One slow, too quick. He knew that rhythm from bus stops and rent lines and any room his mother had waited in. He swallowed. In the waiting area, the headmistress stood. Then, after a beat, "You recognize the necklace. Where did she get it?" His voice sounded like he'd sanded the edges off it. 6 years ago, CPS brought her, Sister Agnes said. She had the pendant, screamed if anyone tried to take it. We made a ritual. Hang it on a hook by the wash basin at night. Good night, back on in the morning. A woman watched from the sycamore. After CPS left, the woman closed the girl's fingers around the pendant and said, "Don't lose the only true thing." Then she vanished. What did she look like? Tired. Hands shook. "It belonged to my mother," he said. "I buried her with it." Sister Agnes absorbed that like someone used to hearing impossible things at practical hours. "Come to St. Bridget's at noon," she said. "We keep records. We keep everything." A commotion at the Pichu doors cut through. "Rosa, Dr. Vale, someone's here for the child, says she's family. Wants the necklace." Adrian touched his pocket, the specimen vial, his name on the label. He closed his fist around it like it could bolt. "Who, a woman?" Rosa said. "Looks like she hasn't slept in a year." They brought her to the threshold, thin, frayed, eyes bright with certainty. "I'm Nora," she said. "Please, that pendant, it's my mother's." "What was your mother's name?" Sister Agnes asked, even though she already knew there was only one answer that would make the air feel like this. "Elena," the woman said. "Elena Vale." The hallway went tight around Adrian's ribs. "I'm her son," he said. Adrian, Nora's breath shuddered. She told me you existed, she said. Said you were brilliant, hard to reach, kind if someone waited long enough. Sister Agnes's eyes moved between them, sharp and kind at once. We don't fight in hallways, she said. The necklace goes back to the child when she asks for it. After that, we talk. Nora nodded, jaw set. Fine. But it didn't land on that kid by accident. My mother gave it to me. When they took Mara, I put it on her. That's all I could do. Who took her? Adrian asked. Social worker, Nora said. I'll tell the story to the kid first. She deserves the full thing. A new voice cut in. Dr. Vale. Oliver Crane, hospital administrator, smile practiced for donor dinners. We need to manage this narrative. Orphan, truck accident, miracle save, jewelry from your past, human interest. No, Sister Agnes said flat. Not happening, Adrian said. Crane's smile hardened. Policy on found items, chain of custody, guardian's wishes, Adrian said. And the guardian is here. Crane clocked the room and decided he'd lose this round in public. We'll speak, he said, which was a promise and a threat. Back at the bed, Mara woke fully. The tube was out. She coughed, winced, reached for her throat. It's gone. I have it, Adrian said. Do you want it? She held his gaze, evaluating. Then she nodded once. He slid the chain over her head. The pendant found its place as if it had a homing device. She exhaled. Still mine, she whispered. He almost said me too. Instead, you're safe. She studied his face like evidence. You look like the woman who sings the bus song, she said. Only older, sadder. The words landed where he couldn't dodge them. Nora stepped into the room, breathless and brave. She stopped, then held out an envelope. For you, she told Mara. I should have brought it sooner. Sister kept it safe. Mara touched the flap, glanced at Adrian. Can you read? Only if you want me to, he said. She nodded. He opened the envelope and saw the handwriting, his mother's loops, his mother's neat insistence, he began. My darling girl. He didn't look up until the last line. If he is near, trust him. Make him open his fist. No one spoke. The machines filled the space with the kind of sound you can lean against. When did she die? Adrian asked finally. 4 years ago, Nora said. Not in a hospital. I wasn't there. Sister knows where. I hate that part. She looked at Mara. I'm sorry for before, for after, for all of it. Was she really my grandma? Mara asked, thumb on the crack of the pendant as if reading Braille. Yes, Adrian said. And the yes felt like setting down a heavy thing he'd been pretending wasn't in his hands. Sister Agnes appeared again, quiet as a verdict. If you're ready, she said. There's something else you should see. What? Adrian asked. A locker in our basement, she said. Paid in cash 12 years ago. Payment stopped 4 years ago. I think you should open it. 5 minutes, Adrian told Mara. Then I'll be back. Bring grape, she said, voice sandpapered. Not red. Red tastes like hospital. Grape, he promised. He didn't notice he was still gripping the specimen vial until his palm hurt. And as he, Nora, and Sister Agnes headed for the elevator, the Pichu doors hissed open again, and Oliver Crane returned. With a stranger behind him, a man whose eyes tracked like inventory. Crane smiled. Dr. Sister, let's talk about asset protection. Not here, Sister Agnes said, already moving. Crane held the smile. We're aligned, child safety, public trust. A found item with significance, chain of custody. The found item is a promise, Adrian said. The custodian is awake and wears it. Crane's gaze slipped to Nora, then back. And if the custodian's situation is fluid, we're not doing this, Sister Agnes said. Make an appointment. Crane's smirk flickered. Board meets Friday. You'll hear from legal. Good, Adrian said. They can learn to say guardian without flinching. It's cute. They left him in the corridor and headed for St. Bridget's basement. The locker's door stuck like it had an opinion. The key turned. Inside, a shoebox wrapped in brown paper. On top, in tidy block letters, in case, Adrian peeled tape like it was skin. Inside, a dented metal tin. Inside that, letters, photos, a cheap scarf, a folded hand-drawn family map. Alina right arrow Adrian. Alina right arrow Nora right arrow Mara. and a cracked flip phone. He turned the phone on. 20 saved voicemails. He pressed play, and his mother's voice filled the small room. "Adrian, it's your mother. If you found this, you followed a line. That's how you live. Come find me or don't. Keep the necklace close. It knows the way." He stopped the message. The room tilted. Nora pulled a photo. Adrian, in a graduation cap, crooked. Elena looking at him instead of the camera. Adoration without apology. "She kept me too," Nora said, holding up a blur where her teenage self glared at the lens like it owed her money, even the bad ones. Sister Agnes slid out a notarized letter. "I, Elena Vale, record this so my children are not asked to argue in rooms. Nora is my daughter, born when Adrian was 23. The father is irrelevant. If the necklace finds Mara, it's because it knows. If my son finds this box, he finally came when called by the reason he pretended he didn't need. They took the tin back to the hospital." Mara was upright, the scarf on her shoulders like a joke she was telling on purpose. She lifted the family map. "Is that me?" she asked. "That's you," Nora said. "And that's your grandmother. And that's—" She nodded toward Adrian, inviting him to say it. "Your uncle," he said, tasting the word, letting it stay. Mara nodded once, as if approving a plan. "Okay." Crane appeared again with a PR woman and the inventory-eyed man. "We're here to photograph the pendant for security," Crane said. "Chain of custody." "No," Sister Agnes said. "No," Adrian said. "No," Adrian said. "You're not inventorying a life." Crane's smile snapped tight. "Board meeting," he said. "We'll formalize expectations." "Perfect," Adrian said. "I'll bring mine." Crane's trio left. Sister Agnes sat, took one breath and laughed once without warmth. "Men in suits keep my blood pressure in shape," she said. Mara licked grape ice and eyed Adrian. "Are you going away?" "No," he said. "No hedge and no footnote. I should have come a long time ago. I didn't know there was a door." "Now you do," she said. He stayed through shift change. The aide called a pile-up. He ran. He returned, washed out and buzzing. Nora waited with bad coffee. "She's good," Nora said. "Sister copied everything because paper disappears if you don't stare at it." "Smart," he said. Nora looked at the floor. "I'm sorry," she said, "for taking so long to get clean, for losing her, for letting the kid carry my mess. He didn't give absolution." "Thank you for saying it," he said. "I wanted apologies to fix holes. They don't, but hearing one is something that helps." Nora blew out air. "Sister says you make a terrible nun but a tolerable uncle." "I'll aim for tolerable," he said. The days stretched and filled. Mara's steps on recovery were fast, then slow, then fast again. She insisted on homework on the ward, like normalcy was a muscle she wanted sore. Adrian learned which look meant pain and which look meant fear dressed as attitude. Nora stumbled once, texted from the edge, and let him show up before she fell the second time. Sister Agnes blocked Oliver Crane with a smile that belonged on a postcard from a battlefield. On the orphanage steps one evening, Mara asked, "Do we need a test?" "We don't need one to be us," Adrian said. "But if you want to do it, we do it." She squinted. "Spit in a tube. Maybe just a cheek swab." She pretended to gag. "Fine. But then I get to look at your hair under a microscope. It's trying to be curly and it's scared." He surrendered. Deal. The board meeting arrived with predictable theatre. Crane wore contrition like a tie. Sister Agnes carried a folder of copies, and the kind of certainty that wins without raising its voice. "Fundraise without faces," she told the board. "Measure us by the promises we keep, not the pictures we take, not the pictures." A former nurse on the board nodded like she'd been waiting to hear exactly that. The vote went Sister Agnes's way. Crane's smile didn't. He cornered Adrian after. "You made me look like the villain. You made yourself look like a spreadsheet," Adrian said. "Stop doing that." Crane's jaw worked. "Policy is not your enemy. People aren't your prop," Adrian said, and left. They did the swabs on a Tuesday. The receptionist's sticky note said, "You are not the worst thing you did when you were tired." Adrian wanted to frame it. While they waited, Mara had a nightmare that someone cut off the pendant. and replaced it with a hospital bracelet stamped property of. She woke crying and then furious at herself for crying. Adrian put her hand on the pendant and said, "It's here." She said, "Say it," and he said, "I'm here." And then they both looked embarrassed, and Sister Agnes pretended not to see. Nora got a letter from someone who used to own her story. Short, mean, pretending regret. "Do you want me to handle it?" Adrian asked. "I'll try," she said. "If I can't, you can." He nodded. Deal. Crane's visibility campaign died quietly after the board meeting, but he sent emails with subject lines like opportunity and risk that Sister Agnes printed and underlined with red pen, in case she needed to perform an exorcism. One night, around a cheap plastic table, they opened another letter from the tin. Elena had written about teaching a cat to sit and ending up scratched and proud. Mara laughed without trying to hide it. Nora topped off lemonade like forgiveness could be poured. The results arrived with no fanfare. The clinician's office had a tired plant and a window that looked at a wall. Biologically, she said, "This is most consistent with Uncle Niece. So we are what we already were," Mara said. "Yes," the clinician said, grateful to have the right patient for a sentence like that. Adrian didn't feel fireworks. He felt furniture settling in a room that finally made sense. They added the paper to the tin because papers deserved neighbors. Sister Agnes added copies because, of course. Nora tapped the pendant. "She used to say it knows," she said. "I hated that line. Now it sounds like a thing you say when you're practicing telling the truth to people who aren't ready." Mara thumbed the crack and said, "Still mine," without defensiveness now. Adrian said, "Still ours," and didn't care how sentimental it sounded when it felt like balance. Then the Pichu called with a routine scan slot, and on the way out they passed the ore corridor where it had all started. Mara stopped. "This where you almost dropped the scalpel," she said. "Allegedly," he said. "Don't do that again," she said. "Copy," he said, and realized it wasn't a joke. They went home by way of St. Bridget's. On the steps, Nora said, "Good things scare me." "Me too," he said. Mara rolled her eye. "Exhausting," she said, taking both their hands anyway. And then Adrian's phone pinged. Crane again. Subject, liability. And he did something he hadn't done in years. He put the phone face down and let it wait. "Tomorrow?" Mara asked, testing if the word would hold. "Tomorrow?" he said. "Rounds. Homework. Popsicles, cinnamon bread you won't let cool." "And I'll stay," Nora said, voice steady for once. They nodded. No speeches, no violins, just 3 people learning how to do the opposite of leaving. And then the man with inventory eyes showed up on the curb again, alone this time, hands in pockets, watching the orphanage like it owed him something. He smiled at Adrian, not friendly. "Doctor," he said, "got a minute?" Adrian didn't move off the top step. "No," he said. "Make it 30 seconds. The man's grin didn't reach his eyes. "Name's Lyle," he said. "I do. Retrieval. The pendant's valuable to more people than you think. We can settle this neatly. No police. No drama. The kid forgets a trinket. You keep your halo." "No," Adrian repeated. "Leave." Lyle tilted his head, measuring. "Board won't protect you forever." "Board doesn't protect me now," Adrian said. "I do my job. You should go do yours somewhere else." Lyle shrugged like he had all afternoon. "Doors always open," he said, and melted back into the street. Sister Agnes appeared behind Adrian, holding a dish towel like a weapon. "He's not the first man to think a house full of children is a soft target," she said. "He won't be the last." She considered Adrian. "Tell Crane the next time that man shows up, we call the police and his donors get a story they won't enjoy." Adrian nodded. "Done." He went to the hospital early the next morning, ran 2 cases clean, and came back with a bag of grape popsicles he pretended were for everyone. Mara refused the red ones on principle and lobbied for a rule that anyone who ate one had to read a letter from the tin out loud. Sister Agnes approved the rule with the solemnity of Parliament. Nora relapsed and texted before she ran. She met Adrian on the corner, eyes wide, hands empty. "I hate needing help," she said. "Same," he said. "We do it anyway." They walked. shocked. She didn't go through the door she wanted. She went home with him instead and drank bad tea at the orphanage while Sister Agnes told her dry stories about saints who failed noisily and kept going. County scheduled a guardianship check. The caseworker arrived with a laptop and a tight smile. She ran through questions: stability, routine, school. Mara answered like a person who had studied for the test and intended to pass, with bonus points for sarcasm. Who makes medical decisions? The caseworker asked. I do, Mara said deadpan. And if I'm wrong, my uncle argues with me and loses. The caseworker glanced at Adrian. He didn't blink. I'm loud, he said, but she usually wins. Sister Agnes slid over a folder. Documentation, she said. Proof of presence. The caseworker skimmed, softened, and left with a different smile. The kind of smile people wear when they've seen something work and don't want to jinx it by saying so. The board sent minutes that looked like victory written in committee language. Crane sent another email, visibility plan revised. Sister Agnes sent back a single sentence. The plan is no. Lyle reappeared on a Thursday with a new tactic, not threats but trivia. You know how often orphanage donations go missing? He said conversationally to Adrian outside the hospital. People misplace things. Things drift. No one's to blame. Adrian stepped closer, surprised by how simple the next part was. This is where I tell you I grew up in a house where things drifted because people wanted them, he said. We're not doing that again. Lyle's smile dimmed. Touchy, he said. Correct, Adrian said. Goodbye. At St. Bridget's, the girls made fun of how serious he looked when he peeled oranges. Mara announced she'd be a surgeon, but only for animals, because humans are whiny. He attempted to be offended and failed. Nora did something that seemed small and wasn't. She changed the locks on her apartment and put the emergency contact form Sister Agnes kept losing into her own phone. She read letters from Alina and didn't leave the room when they hurt. She stayed and let them. Adrian learned Mara's scar maintenance routine and respected it like a protocol. He taught her resurgence not for the drawstring of her hoodie, and she wore it like a medal for 3 days. Then a letter arrived, addressed to Mara in a hand none of them recognized. It said, You don't know me. I knew your mother. I know where the pendant came from. Meet me, come alone. Mara folded it twice and handed it to Sister Agnes, who didn't flinch. We don't do alone, Sister Agnes said. We do teams. Is it a trick? Mara asked. Probably, Adrian said. But sometimes tricks point to something real. Nora read the letter, jaw tight. If this is him, she started, then stopped. The he left undefined and heavy. Sister Agnes called the number on the letter from the office phone with the speaker off and the door open. We'll meet you, she told the voice that answered. 3 of us. Public place. No pendant. The voice agreed too quickly. They chose a diner 6 blocks away. Booth by the window. Exit in sight. Sister Agnes drinking coffee like it owed her. Adrian not touching his water. Nora stiff as wire. The man who slid into the opposite bench was not Lyle. He was smaller, sweated his hairline. He introduced himself as Danny. I was around back then, he said, eyes on Nora. I did stupid things for someone worse. I saw the necklace go where it shouldn't. Where? Nora said. Pawn, he said. Then not pawn. Someone paid cash, told the shop it was a family piece. They were right. Just not their family. Adrian's stomach went cold. Danny named a name Nora hadn't said in months. The room went quieter somehow. He kept it, Danny said. He liked the idea he had something that mattered to you more than he did. How did it get to the kid? Adrian asked. Danny looked at Nora, then away. Your mother bought it back, he said. She didn't have the money. She got it anyway. She wore it. Then she gave it to your kid when the social worker came. I was there. I didn't help. I'm trying to do one thing right. Where is he now? Sister Agnes asked. Gone, Danny said. Prison, then gone. But the kind of gone that writes letters like that. He nodded at the paper. I'm sorry. He left a phone number and a pile of guilt and went. They didn't eat. They sat a minute while the waitress refilled coffees and pretended she wasn't listening. Back at the orphanage, Mara said. So people were worse than I thought. And better than I thought at the same time. Welcome to the club, Adrian said. She studied him. Does any of this change the fact that I get to keep it? She touched the pendant. No, he said. It might explain why it feels heavy some days. Feels heavy today, she said. Take it off for an hour, Sister Agnes suggested. Hang it on the hook. Make it earn its way back. Mara considered, then did it. The small act of sovereignty louder than any speech. That night, Nora stood at the sink, sleeves rolled, grief and relief mixed. She kept going, she said of Alina, even when we made it impossible. Adrian didn't say he knew. He said, we keep going too. His phone buzzed. Pichu, a kid crashing. He ran, he operated. He didn't think about necklaces until the quiet after. And then he thought about the letter in Mara's pocket, and the man with inventory eyes, and the word gone that never meant what people thought it did. When he got back to St. Bridget's, the pendant was back around Mara's neck. She had put it on herself. It's mine, she said, not to argue but to mark the ground. He nodded, and for the first time since the awe, the thought that had been gnawing finally formed. The necklace tied them all together, yes. But the person who had tied it last, who had closed the loop and sent it forward, was the only one they hadn't truly named out loud to the girl. He had to say it, in a way that didn't break anything they'd just begun to build. Tomorrow, he told himself. Tomorrow I tell her the full line. He didn't sleep much. And at noon, the next day, Oliver Crane called with a smugness you could hear. Board wants an artifact protocol, Dr. Vale. Bring the pendant to my office. No, Adrian said, but I'll bring you something else. What's that? The press, Adrian said lightly. If you put your hands on that necklace, you will become a headline you can't survive. The silence on the other end told him Crane finally understood which story would win. Fine, Crane said. For now. Forever, Adrian said and hung up. Then he went to the Pichu and pulled up a chair by Mara's bed. We've got one more knot to tie, he said. Mara watched his face. A hard one. She asked. A true one, he said, which is the same thing most days. Nora slipped in and sat on the other side, fingers clenched, ready to run and promising not to. Sister Agnes stood at the foot of the bed like a referee who could also call time and bring snacks. Adrian didn't clear his throat. He didn't rehearse. He looked at the girl who had stared him down after a near death and measured him and let him put a promise around her neck. You asked if Alina was your grandma, he said. Yes, she was. She also... He glanced at Nora, then back. She also was Nora's mother. Which makes Nora your mother. Which makes me your mother's brother. Which makes me your uncle. Mara frowned, not confused, sorting. So you're saying my mom is your sister, she said slowly. And your mom was both of our grandma, and that's why we all keep humming the same stupid bus song. Adrian nodded. Nora swallowed a laugh that turned into a sob anyway. Mara looked at Nora, then at Adrian. Did you know this in the awe? No, he said. I knew the pendant. I didn't know the line. She touched the crack. And now you do. Now I do, he said. She stared at Nora for a long second, as if taking in a painting she'd seen all her life and only now understood. You left, she said, not as an accusation, but as a fact that needed two hands to hold. I did, Nora said, and I'm not leaving now. Mara's mouth twitched. Good, she said, because I have homework and you have to suffer with me. Sister Agnes exhaled, tension leaving her like a tide. Bless the ungilded truth, she said. Now, who wants cinnamon bread? Me, Mara said. Because a child's job is to keep the adults from floating away in abstractions. They ate. They read another letter from the tin, one where Alina had written to my girl about making soup with almost nothing and calling it feast. Nora cried in a way she wasn't ashamed of. Adrian folded the letter and slid it back into the tin with the reverence of a person shelving a book that would be needed again. The next days were oddly simple in the way good days are when you stop running from the obvious. Adrian worked and came back and worked again. Nora strung together sober mornings and more honest ones. Mara started tapping her rail rhythm less like a warning and more like a habit she could break if she felt like it. Sister Agnes drew up a custody plan with checkboxes where there used to be question marks. Small hooks kept tension honest. Lyle tried once more, catching Adrian outside the hospital. "Last chance," he said. "Last speech," Adrian said. "Go!" Lyle grinned, then didn't. He left. County called to say a relative had come forward on the father's side. Sister Agnes said, "They can talk to my voicemail." Crane hovered at the edge of hallways like mole. Adrian kept his phone full of photos of Mara's popsicle rules to remind himself what conversation mattered. And then the clinic called. Routine imaging had found something that might not be anything and might be something they'd need to cut. Adrian read the report and felt the focus that comes before a storm, the kind that makes everything else hush. "I don't want another surgery," Mara said, honest. "I don't want to do one," he said, equally honest. "Will you do it if you have to? Yes. Will you be the one to do it? If you want me to. What if you cry in the awe?" she said, practical. "I'll cry after," he said, in a stairwell where it's traditional. She nodded, satisfied with logistics. They scheduled the date, soon, not frantic. They rehearsed the morning so it would feel boring. Sister Agnes packed a bag with things that made time move. Cards, a book with short chapters, the scarf. Nora asked if she could scrub in, and Adrian said no, and she said fine, and he saw her choosing trust over proximity. On the morning of, at the door to the elevators, Mara tugged Adrian's sleeve. "If I die," she said, because children try to let adults off the hook by saying the thing the adults are too polite to voice. "You're not," he said. "But thank you for making me say it." "Say it again," she said. "You're not dying," he said. "Not today," she nodded and handed him the pendant. "Hold this until I wake up," she said. "If you keep it, I'll find you." "I know," he said, and put it in his pocket like a second, stubborn heartbeat. They went in. The oar was a machine that knew its cues. He scrubbed and didn't look at his reflection. He draped and didn't register the color of the drape. He stood where he stands when it matters and asked for the instruments he needed and made the cautious cut. Inside, the world was less dramatic than the scan had threatened. A hitch, not a clip. He fixed it like he was mending a favorite shirt, not pretty work but strong. The monitors stayed polite. The anesthesiologist nodded once at the right moment, and Adrian let one breath go he hadn't realized he was saving. "Closing," he said, and tied sutures with neatness that wasn't performative. He thanked the room and left and cried in the stairwell quickly, because he'd said he would. Mara woke foggy and irritated. "Did you mess up my scar?" she asked. "I made it more interesting," he said. She touched the pendant. "Still mine." He took it out and looped it over her neck. "Still yours." She looked him over like a chief inspector. "And you're still my uncle, more than ever," he said. "Okay," she said, and fell asleep mid-nod. That night, they took the tin out again and added new things. The surgical consents, the bracelet she'd insisted on keeping. A photo of Adrian looking like someone had told him a joke he wasn't ready to laugh at yet. "Bigger box," Sister Agnes said, and fetched one. "Because this is what you do when your life grows. You fetch a bigger box." Nora stood in the doorway and watched them make space for more. "I used to think stories ended when you said the big truth," she said. "Turns out that's when they start." "Infuriating," Adrian said. "Correct," Sister Agnes said. Mara blinked awake, saw the new box, and said, "We're going to need a shelf," then went back to sleep. Adrian walked outside to breathe. The night was unremarkable. He liked it that way. He thought of the first shock in the awe, the pendant taped to a child's throat, the ridiculous coincidence that had not been coincidence at all. He thought of the lost years and how they had not, it turned out, been lost to everyone. He thought of how to make up time without making the making up the whole point. His phone buzzed. A text from Crane. "Heard surgery went fine. Good optics." Adrian typed back, "It's not optics, Oliver. It's a person." Then, because he'd promised himself better boundaries, he put the phone away and went back inside. And when he re-entered Mara's room, she was awake again, and she said, "One more thing," and he braced without meaning to. "What?" he asked. "You know the song," she said. "It's ours." But we can teach it to other people if we want. He smiled, not tired of that idea. We will, he said. Tomorrow. She asked. Tomorrow, he said. And then, because story's worth keeping, throw one more hook before the end. The caseworker called with a question that could rearrange everything in a single sentence. There's a legal note from 4 years ago signed by Elena Vale, she said. It names a guardian if anything should happen to Nora. The name is yours. He stared at the phone. Say it again, he said. Your mother filed a guardianship designation, the caseworker repeated. If Nora is unable, and until Mara is of age, she asks that you be next in line. A pause. Did you know? No, he said. I know now. He told Sister Agnes first. She nodded like a storm she'd expected had finally arrived at a manageable hour. We'll put it on paper, not just in people's heads, she said. People forget, paper remembers. He told Nora next. She flinched like someone had opened a door she didn't want to see behind, and then steadied. She trusted you more than me, she said, and the old shame tried to climb back onto her shoulders. She trusted us, he said. She trusted you to choose me if you needed to. She trusted me to choose you if I did. Nora looked down at Mara's sleeping face and said, okay, and meant it. He told Mara last, because he wanted to have the language right. There's a paper that says if your mom can't do it. I do, he said. Mara considered. Do what? Show up, he said. Sign things. Fight men in suits. Buy grape popsicles. Be loud when you need quiet and quiet when you need loud. She nodded. You already do that. Good, he said, throatful. Then the paper can sit with the other papers and behave itself. They put the designation in the tin. The tin looked ridiculous now, stout and overfull, and they all felt weirdly proud of it. Lyle disappeared. Crane sent an email that actually said congratulations. Sister Agnes printed it, wrote "Ha" in the margin, and filed it under things we don't need but keep anyway. County set a final meeting and arrived to find a room arranged less like a meeting than a small party. The caseworker took off her professional voice and used her regular one. I don't get to see this often, she said. Thanks for letting me. Life settled into something that could be called routine without anyone feeling jinxed. Adrian rationed or days and orphanage evenings like a person who'd learned both mattered. Nora learned the names of her cravings and kept them from driving. Mara healed, added piano lessons and a truly terrible joke book to her days, and began inserting Uncle Adrian Says into conversations like a threat and a charm. On a Sunday, they went to the river with packed sandwiches and a deck of cards that stuck together. Mara dared Adrian to skip stones and then laughed so hard when he failed that he vowed to get competent by autumn. Nora fell asleep on a blanket with her arm thrown over her eyes, and Sister Agnes cheated at cards with the kind of innocence only professionals manage. Do you miss her? Mara asked as they watched the water decide what to do with itself. Every day, he said. Differently now. Same, she said, and leaned into him like a person testing a chair and finding it holds. He hummed the bus song. She joined. Nora's voice came in off-key from the blanket. Sister Agnes, from the chair, said, not in public, without looking up. And they kept humming anyway. When school asked for a family tree, Mara drew a lopsided one with the pendant at the top. Not the actual necklace, just the shape, then wrote names. Elena letters big, Nora, Adrian, Mara. She added Sister Agnes on the side with an asterisk labeled Boss of Bread. She presented it to her class and didn't apologize for the glue stains. That night they added the new drawing to the tin, conceded defeat, and moved everything to a bigger box with a lid that didn't squeak because Sister Agnes had oiled it. Crane, perhaps learning, sent a grant for St. Bridget's with no strings. Sister Agnes took it and wrote "Thank you" with the restraint of a saint who had learned cussing in the army. Lyle, perhaps learning nothing, sent a postcard that read "Sorry" in block letters. They threw it away without ceremony. Not everything needed keeping. On the anniversary of the R, Adrian brought home 3 ridiculous cupcakes and too many grape popsicles. They sat on the orphanage steps because that's where they'd had the hard conversations and the easy ones, and the ones that turned out to be both. Mara tapped the rail. Too quick, one slow, too quick, without thinking, then smiled when she caught herself. "It's not an alarm anymore," she said. "It's just me." "Good rhythm," he said. She reached for the pendant and found the crack and looked at him. "Still mine," she said, "not to exclude anyone, but to mark belonging." "Still ours," he said. Nora nudged him with her shoulder. "Stay," she said, not because she doubted now, but because the word had become a ceremony that worked. He stayed, and when midnight became morning and fear tried its old tricks, the difference now was simple and impossible. He had people to tell it to. A girl who would ask, say the thing out loud and make it. A sister who would call from the stairwell and say, "Come stand in my doorway until the wanting passes," and he would. A headmistress who would shove papers into his hands and say, "Sign here, then eat," and it would be enough. He woke early the next day and ran past the hospital, and past the sycamore, and back to St. Bridget's, and up the steps, and into a day that didn't need a soundtrack. In the or later, a resident froze on a simple move. Adrian put a hand on the kid's shoulder and said, "Breathe, we'll go slow." The resident nodded, steadied. After he asked Adrian how you know where to cut when everything looks like everything else. "You look for the thing that keeps showing up," Adrian said. "Even when you didn't invite it, you follow that." The resident frowned, not getting the riddle and not needing to yet. That evening, Mara made him sit still while she aimed a toy microscope at his hair and declared, "Triumphant, it's definitely curly, it's just shy." He groaned, and she grinned, and Nora pretended to take notes in a medical chart labeled Veil, Adrian condition improving. They ate cinnamon bread too hot and didn't apologize for it. Sister Agnes gave a toast with lemonade, like it was something stronger. To paper that remembers, to people who stay, to songs that don't need words. They clinked plastic cups like it mattered. And in the quiet after, when the house shifted the way old houses do as they settle on their foundations, Mara whispered the truth that had hoisted all of them across the finish line of the worst part. "It didn't feel like a miracle," she said. "It felt like you didn't leave." "Both," Adrian said. "But yes, mostly that." She nodded once, sovereign. "Okay," she said. "Tomorrow, tomorrow," he promised, again and again if she asked. And the pendant lay against her collarbone, cracked and stubborn, not magic, not cursed. Just a small, bright proof that a life can be broken and still hold. That a story can lose its way and still find the next page. That a person can be asked to open his fist and actually do it. Still mine. Still ours,